wanted to welcome you back to the sanctuary here at PSJC, and again a huge thank you to our anti-racism committee, and especially at Road Feit Tzedek, of our Pursuers of Justice committee here at PSJC, and especially those who have been doing so much work to help us engage with the work of criminal justice in this community and in this state. We really are so grateful. I want to just acknowledge also Talia Kaplan, our rabbinic intern, or rabbinic fellow, who's been helping us, and Rabbi Margot Hughes Robinson, who really gave us an inspiring Devar Torah. I think every one of us is ready to go out and join you in the work. If we haven't already, we will step up even more. As a community, we know the importance of criminal justice in our community. We know it touches us here. Not everybody talks about it, but it touches us right here in this room. There are people who have been touched very deeply by the problems in our criminal justice system at the moment, and there are people who aren't here, who are also more often touched by these challenges. And it is upon us as Jews, it's upon us as human beings to pursue justice in this area for those who really have a deck stacked against them, and it is ours, especially to, as we were talking, as a number of people have said to me today, to not only give the demand of tshuva, of giving people a chance to do tshuva, to change their ways, is not just worthy of a second chance, but a 19th or a 15th chance, as I've been taught. And it is upon us to understand how we might go about doing that. And so I'm going to hand us over to June Zeitlin, who is a member of our Criminal Justice Task Force. Okay. I'm going to give her my microphone so she can be heard. I hope the folks on Zoom are able to hear us. And just a reminder one more time that this is actually being recorded. So if those on Zoom do not want to be seen, you can take appropriate precautions. All right.
Okay. Well, thank you, Rabbi. And we've had several really good starts today, including the Devar Torah that Rabbi Margot Hughes Robinson gave during synagogue, and I think Rabbi Carey has been really a great supporter of this work and encouraged us to continue to do it. And so it's been really an honor, really, to be having this program today on behalf of Road Feit Tzedek and our chair of Road Feit Tzedek, Lisa, who's been supporting our work all along. Sorry? I'm not doing this good. Okay. She's more experienced than I am.
We got it. You just needed to hold it in the right spot.
Okay.
Thanks, Patrick.
So I think Carrie's given a very good introduction, and I just want to add that one of the main things we've done in Road Feit Tzedek and on criminal justice is to join the New York Jewish Coalition for Criminal Justice Reform, and that has enabled us to meet some wonderful people, including those who are here today, and to work with partners, both our Jewish partners in the coalition and other organizations that have been on the front lines of dealing with criminal justice reform. So I just want to now introduce our two speakers who will talk about their own experiences in the criminal justice system, but also their expertise in what they've seen that works and that doesn't work and that needs to work, building on some of the issues that Margot raised in terms of trust and taking action that might feel uncomfortable, but is necessary in order to bring about change. So on my right is Chandra Clark. She's the Vice President of Policy and Strategy at Exodus Transitional Community, and I'm sure she'll tell you a little bit more about their work. And then on my left is Mala Divine Mala, and he's a public educator and an author, actually, of a number of books, and is the reentry program coordinator at the Center for Community Alternatives. And I asked his permission to make a little plug for one of his books, which is called Prison Survival, Hell's Prison, and I must confess, as a reader, I learned an awful lot, and reminding both how difficult it is, but possible if you have the will and the backup to succeed. So he will talk a little bit more about that. Both Chandra and Mala will discuss conditions of incarceration in New York, the challenges of reentry, and the importance of passing a law that's before the state legislature called the Clean Slate Bill, which will help people getting out of prison be able to get a better shot at housing and employment and things that make them able to succeed in the outside world. So I'm gonna pass it to them and have each of them talk, and then we'll have time for some questions. So if that's all right, I'm gonna turn it over to Chandra.
Sure. And can you all hear me in this? Can the Zoom hear me? So thank you all for inviting me today. It's the first time I've ever been to a Jewish service like this, and it's a really beautiful space, and just everything about it was really beautiful. And listening to Rabbi Margot, it was almost like we kind of did this together, like we planned this together, which was really beautiful. So I always talk about my story and how I got into this work, starting with my childhood. I grew up in a village of 850 people in the Midwest, in a very rural, poor community. And I grew up in domestic violence. You know, my mom had serious mental illness. She died from cirrhosis at the age of 46. She drank my whole life. And incarceration and getting arrested and violence and abuse was very normal for me. And of course, I ended up getting incarcerated as well, right? My first arrest was at 15 for running away. People don't realize that's actually a status offense. So, you know, running away, you can be criminalized for it, right? And it's one more way that they often keep young women specifically in that cycle, because that's a very unique for women to be criminalized over running away compared to boys, but it still happens with boys as well. And had a lot of drug and alcohol issues when I was younger. That was kind of my escape from coming home and experiencing abuse, right? If I was high, it didn't hurt as bad. And so it's taken me a lot of therapy to realize that, you know, something that we demonize often in this country is drugs, is something that potentially saved my life as a young person, because I don't know if I would have been able to take the abuse if I wouldn't have been as high. So, you know, from 16 to 17, I was arrested 4 times, and then started getting arrested for felonies, right? So I started with misdemeanors. Once they know your name, from the very small communities that I come from in rural America, you're targeted. You know, once they know your name, the police kind of followed me everywhere and would pull me over for no reason, but you know you'd end up getting arrested for a roach, right? A marijuana roach. So that happens to a lot of us. And I always say, you know, in New York City, we don't realize, we're very, we only look at the city, right? We don't realize that in the whole country in the United States that this is constantly occurring. And I think one thing that was very unique about rural America jails are, you know, I've been in several counties in Illinois, and one of them only had 6 women in the entire county. So you can imagine what kind of resources we had in a jail where there was only 6 women. We didn't even get to leave our unit. We ate on our bed. Like, there was no movement at all. There was no library. There was no outside recreation. There was no nothing. There was no counselor. There was no programs. There's no nothing. You sat in it was a unit of 8 bunk beds, 4 bunk beds, so 8 beds in total. And that was how you did your time. You did not get any support. Officers could do whatever they wanted to you. And you were, just like the rabbi spoke about earlier with Rikers, you were out of sight, out of mind, right? And they do that in all jails across this country. So I'm very privileged now that I get to work in New York City and see the differences, but also see the similarities and sometimes even more abuse that you experience in rural America compared to even out here. So cycled in and out of jail, in and out of treatment. I was in 7 underage treatment programs before I was 21, right? And of course, you know, it was always a lot of my fault. Why are you running away? Why are you doing drugs? Why are you not able to maintain relationships with authority figures? No one ever asked me until my very last counselor what was going on in my house that was making me run away and do drugs and do all of these things. And the women that I saw when I was across this country, I've always said this, I've never met a woman that actually was so dangerous that she needed to actually be in jail. And I have literally been in jails and prisons across 3 states. And I've yet to meet a woman where I was just like, oh my gosh, what she did was so horrific that we needed to have her incarcerated. What I saw was a lot of me and my mom inside, right? And that's really why I started doing this work. My last bid out here in New York, every girl that came into that law library, because I had the privilege of fighting them to become a law clerk, even though I didn't really have the credentials, but I really wanted to do something. And every woman that I saw come in there was just from broken homes. Most of us grew up without fathers, or we had stepfathers that were very abusive. It's that common theme, right? A lot of us were mothers. And that's the people that you see on Rikers. It's the people that you see in women's jails across this country, right? And so that's what really spurred my plan to come home and do reentry. When I was sitting there making 25 cents an hour as a law clerk, which, mind you, men make 75 cents an hour as a law clerk inside. Women only make 25 cents, so there's even a gender pay gap disparity inside. I just want to throw that out there because most people don't know that. So while I was sitting there, I said, listen, this was the best job that I ever had, making 25 cents an hour, but like fighting the system in a different way, right? And learning how to be an activist without using a gun or without using violence. And that I knew that when I came home, I would want to do reentry. So before getting to upstate in New York, I did spend 4 months on Rikers. And Rikers Island, the rabbi spoke about it earlier, is on a toxic landfill. So most people don't realize that. The island was only like 75 or 85 acres. Now it's almost 400 acres. And that's because they put the landfill on top of it, like all the waste from the subway systems and all the garbage in New York City, they put on top of that. And then they built Rikers Island on top of it. So, we also talk about how environmentally it's uninhabitable, like humans should not be even on the island. And that's not just detained or incarcerated people, that's our officers, that's our civilians, that's everyone that's there, right? And again, nobody talks about that in the city either, the health disparities that everyone experiences because of Rikers. I think what was really unique to me about Rikers, and I've been incarcerated in Cook County in Chicago too, but Rikers, the abuse, I think, and the trauma and just the disparities that we experienced specifically in there, like the sewer system would come out through the floor, right, in the day room. And that's a regular thing because the buildings are actually like going underground, right? So they're not habitable. There's no way to fix Rikers Island. And I used to see women all the time, I talk about this a lot, who are hungry. And my first episode at Rikers, I went in and I'm in the bullpen for multiple days because I had several cases and it was very complicated. And this girl came in and she was just telling the officer she was hungry. And it was after the time that they gave us our bologna sandwiches. So the officer was not giving her any bologna. So she reached her arm through the gates, pulled the garbage can over, dipped her hand in the garbage can and ate bologna out of it. And every single correctional officer sat there and watched, right? And I don't say this to say that like correctional officers need help as well, right? They have been, when you're in that system of abuse, we know this, right? It becomes normalized for them as well. And they're not provided with other options on how to de-escalate. They're not mental health providers. They're not treatment counselors. And when you look at the population on Rikers, 50% have mental health, 19% have serious mental illness. But it's higher if it's just about women. Women, 86% have received some type of or asked for some type of mental health services, right? So we know that the folks on there are really, really struggling. And unfortunately, our officers are not equipped. And I really feel bad for them as well because they go through the same conflict in their own minds. They didn't sign up to go in and abuse people. But this is what ends up happening because the system is so broken and because people are not offered the opportunities to actually learn the proper ways, right? It's not just about, when we talk about closing Rikers, it's not just about closing that those buildings, right? Rikers has like 14 buildings on it. It's not just about closing those buildings. It's about really reimagining what the culture and the staffing and the programming and like addressing the root causes look like. And that's really why I invested so much time. I've been on the Close Rikers campaign since 2015, and I will be on it until we close Rikers, and it will happen. We will get there. But it's because of that. It's because of us seeing how it can change, right? I've been to Europe. I had the privilege of going with the mayor's office and the Department of Corrections in 2019 to Europe to travel and look at facilities out there. Blown away. I was so blown away. I'm an abolitionist at heart, and so to tell me before I went on this trip that I was gonna see a jail that I would actually like buy into, it was never happening. It was never happening. Amsterdam and Norway. But it's crazy because we've done a lot of work, and now there's many other countries, and even in the United States, Colorado, North Dakota, California, they are all being very progressive change makers out there with their systems. We are far behind in New York City for being the most progressive city, quote unquote, I often say. So, you know, my work, I think, with this is to really bring policies and practices that work in other locations. Like in Norway, for example, the maximum sentence you could ever get is 21 years. They do not believe that people cannot change over their whole life. Now that to me is kind of common sense, right? If you think about it, all of us are not the same people we were when we were 20, right? And even when we were 40, right? For folks that are older than that. So I always think about, you know, if people judged me based on who I was back then compared to who I am now, like people would never know that I have several felonies and several misdemeanors and several charges, right? And I was designated a CMC when I was in prison, central monitoring case. I was the most dangerous person, right? And that's what I always try to tell people too, when they classify you, they say everybody on Rikers is dangerous. I was one of them. I was in like the building that couldn't have movement because I was, you know, my bail was $250,000, and it was for a white collar crime, but they still considered that so dangerous that I wasn't allowed to have movement. So it's also really like when I meet with the people on Rikers, when I talk with them, they're not dangerous to me at all. I've never been scared being on Rikers and providing services, right? In fact, we're able to sometimes teach the officers other ways to work with folks and de-escalate, because it's really about how you treat people. And I've seen that, you know, primarily, if you treat me like an animal, I'm gonna behave like an animal, right? And that's really how it is on the inside. And when you get so dehumanized and so beat down, and everywhere you go, there's violence, there's, you know, negative energy, people are calling you horrible names, like words matter. And you don't even have a name when you're on Rikers. You have a number that you go by, right? When you're upstate, you have a DIN number. People don't even call you by a name. You don't even have that. So we lose everything, and then we expect people to be released and be okay. And it's like, it doesn't work like that, right? We have a lot of trauma that we've experienced while being inside, and we need folks to, you know, give us that grace and mercy and give us that space. So I'll just do a little bit about Exodus and what I do there, and then I'll pass it over. And I have a ton of ways that people can get involved, different bills and legislative priorities that we're working on, and also some, you know, when people ask you those really hard questions, right? We got some responses to them, those really tough ones. What do we do with people who have sex convictions, right, that are trying to move into housing, right? Like I'm talking about the really tough questions, trying to reframe it for folks to kind of see and think about community safety. So we can do that at the end, or like I can answer questions, but I'll save that. But I just want to do a little bit on Exodus because the rabbi really set it up for this. So Exodus was founded in 1999 by people. The idea of it came from prison, right? My executive director, Julio Medina, and all the greats that we still sit here and really emulate today and give respect to today and honor today, they couldn't understand why, if everyone wanted to get out of prison, and when we were incarcerated, we kept saying, I just can't wait to go home, I just can't wait to go home. They couldn't understand why they kept seeing people come back, right? And that's really what it's about. That's why they figured out, oh, reentry is really hard. You go home and you want to do what's right, but everybody slams the door in your face. You can't get a job because you got a record. You can't get housing because you got a record. You can't get your kids back because you got a record. So you're stuck in this cycle and people end up committing crime again, right? It's what recidivism, and the system, I would argue, is designed exactly to do what it's doing. And that's why we need to dismantle it and reimagine it, right? I still believe in accountability, but you can have accountability without using punitive measures, right? And so it took Julio 3 years after coming home before he first got his first funding for Exodus. So in the late 90s and early 2000s, people weren't talking about criminal justice like they are today, right? I would have never had an opportunity probably back then to speak on a panel in front of people and to be seen as an expert with my record. So it was really, really tough. I always say the greats who've done this for 40 years, like I will pay honor and homage to them forever because I can't imagine what they had to go through compared to what we have to now, right? And it's still hard for all of us, but it's still vastly different back then. Julio used to always say that, his first, it was an office in a church that gave him the room for him to have his business because he didn't have any money. And the roof leaked so bad that they had to take umbrellas, the case managers, and hold umbrellas over their desks so they could still case manage folks who were coming home from prison. So I talk about very humble beginnings when we talk about Exodus. And something that the rabbi talked about was, the wilderness before they get to the promised land, right? The book of Exodus. And our wilderness workshop is our job readiness workshop, which we coined the wilderness workshop. So people can go through that before they then get to the promised land of them being able to be employed, right? And at Exodus, we have alternatives to incarceration, which is one of my favorite programs because we actually do cases that have gun charges. So we're diverting people who could potentially be spending 10 years or more upstate into our programs. And I always say when I sit with my young people and have them draw their ideal community, not a single one of them draws a gun in that picture, right? Our young people don't want guns. They are stuck in this cycle, right? And then they have no other opportunities. And that's why I used a gun when I was little. It's because of that, right? It was because I had no other option when you're 15 on the streets by yourself, trying to figure out where you're gonna sleep the next day, right? So I always kind of break that down for folks because a lot of people think our young people are so violent. And I'm like, it's not true. When you sit with any of our young people, even if they're in different gangs, none of them draw a gun or anything that's violent in their ideal community. They all draw schools, mental health facilities, good housing, equality and equitable resources. That's what our young people want to see. That to me is community safety, right? And in addition, a lot of our other programs are our outpatient substance use treatment center, our mental health clinic, our job development, which I spoke a little bit about with our wilderness workshop. And we have this really amazing Center for Trauma Innovation, which focuses on non-traditional and traditional forms of therapy. So I used to have young people come in and say, Miss, I'm gonna commit a crime because I need to pay for studio time. And this happened a lot, right? Because a lot of our young people wanna be rappers, right? I said, okay, hold on, we're gonna create a studio and we're gonna give you free studio time based on your attendance in the program, right? So I think there's a lot of innovative, really cool things that we could do, especially as being we have 118 billionaires in this state alone. I always let folks know that, 118 billionaires in New York State alone. But we have young people that don't have opportunities, right? And how is that fair? So I'll leave it at that. And like I said at the end, I'm really excited to speak about different policies and legislation that we're trying to pass right now. And then just even opportunities for folks to volunteer. Like I said, in my Center for Trauma Innovation, I've been working with Tal and some of the other folks on this council, and they've been coming in and volunteering to do yoga or meditation or art, creative writing. All of those things are opportunities of how you can really play a role in this field and really make a difference in people's lives.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you gave us so many ideas, and I know you have a lot more, but I know Mala also has some important information to share and get to the legislation and his own
Definitely.
experience. So please, go ahead, Marla.
First, I'd like to say thank all of y'all for coming out, because I knew y'all could be doing something better on this Saturday. I'd like to thank Leslie, June, for putting this all together. So my name is Malar Devon Malar. Let me share a little bit about myself. I'm Brooklyn born and raised out in Bushwick. Just, you can go ahead, we Brooklyn bias up in here. Yeah,
Okay,
so
is that better?
that's better? All right. So with that being said, right, I came up in the time of New York when New York probably was at its worst. I come from a two-parent household, so I didn't come from a broken family. I came from a broken neighborhood. When I was coming up in Bushwick, it was lots, it was heroin being sold. This is before the crack era. When crack hit, I was around 10. So now you got the crack era plus the heroin era plus Bushwick looking like the South Bronx. So the level of violence that I seen, it was normalized to me. I didn't think nothing wrong was nothing wrong with violence. And if y'all can remember as well, the Daily News on page 3, every day they had something about the New York Mafia, every day. So when you coming up with that type of mentality, you see what's going on, eventually you look at violence as part of your socialization. So the first time I was incarcerated, I was 17 years old. I went to Rikers Island. They used to call Rikers Island Gladiator School, Adolescents at War. That was C-74. And when you rolled up to it, the CO said, the first thing they said is, don't touch the jack like you own it. Because if you get hurt, we don't got nothing to do with that. The jack is the phone. Back then, you know, a lot of wars was for the phone and the TV, and whoever controlled the phone and controlled the TV, they controlled the block. So in the level of violence that was going on, when I went to Rikers Island, it was around 20,000 people on Rikers Island. Very different than what Rikers Island looked like today. So at the conclusion of that first case, you know, I still had enough credits to graduate on time, right? Because school wasn't no big thing to me. And I went to school, I graduated 93. I went down to Norfolk State University, a historical black college in Virginia. While I was down there, I never changed my mentality. 4 out of 5 people I went down there, all of us was already on probation. So you can probably assume how that turned out, right? So when 94 came in, I was on a run for a body. And the whole 94, I was on a run. I was a fugitive warrant. A fugitive from Virginia. And I wound up getting caught in 95 in Queens because my mother had moved to Queens by that time. So, you know, they extradited me down to Virginia. I'm looking at life in 28 years, at 20 years old. I don't have no information to provide for them because, you know, I feel like you stand on the code, win, lose, or draw. You know, if you make your bed hard, you should be able to lay in it hard. And I like to take accountability for whatever I've done. So I'm not going to bring somebody else down just to get a lesser time. So when the smoke cleared, they gave me 55 years with parole. I wound up doing 19 and a half years. And I came home September 10th, 2014. I was on parole until 2019. So you know, since 17 to 44, this is like, I'm 48 now. So the last 4 years, I've been totally free, under no jurisdiction. In the time since I've been home, you know, I went back to college. I got an associate's degree in computer network technology. I have a bachelor's degree in computer systems, and I have a few cloud certifications, as well as I'm an author. I wrote 4 books. That's actually my second book. My first book is called The Hidden Hand Duality Itself. That book is called Prison Survival, Hell's Prison. My third book is called Reentry Strategies and Staying Free, because I didn't want to be a hypocrite, knowing how I got off parole and didn't share how other people can get off parole, right? And my last book is a book of poem called The Struggle Is Real. I named it after one of my good friends. He was older. That was the name of his organization in Queens. He passed away from COVID. So, you know, he was a poet. He didn't get a chance to put his own poems out. So I said, I'll put a book of poems out and I dedicate it to him. And how I got into this work was I helped organize a march called the Millions for Prisoners Human Rights March that took place in DC 2017. While I was talking about the 13th Amendment while I was going to BMCC at the time, people from the Close Rikers Island campaign came to speak. And I was like, well, how I'm doing a national campaign and I'm not doing nothing at home. So I participated in the Close Rikers Island campaign. I spoke at a few of the Littman commissions. I did a few direct actions, and and de Blasio said he was going to close Rikers Island before the Littman Commission report was about to come out that same week. Mind I ask you, and they was already going to recommend it, close Rikers Island based off of what she said. That report is real informative, and I think that if you've never read it, that you should. So when people say close Rikers Island, they're not talking about like from a position of being biased. They're talking about, yo, you shouldn't be on that at all, and so I got into advocacy, and during this advocacy, I realized certain things when this is the Clean Slate Act, New York. And I want to speak about that for a few, because I think it's very important. First and foremost, if this bill goes into effect, it would relieve pressure for 2.3 million New Yorkers. So with that, that's us being human, sharing our human experience together. But the barriers that are involved is what hinders us. And it brings me to a quote, I'm paraphrasing by Victor Hugo from Les Miserables. He said, you don't blame the person that exists in darkness, you blame the people that create the darkness for the sin to even exist in. So right now, the darkness is these these laws and these policies that hinder us. It hinders us in education, it hinders us in employment, and it hinders us in housing. So when I first came home, because when I went to Norfolk State, I was actually a nursing major. I was going to practice anesthesiology. So when I came home, I thought about that. But then when I read that, you need to have a license, and I'm like, with a criminal offense, you got to go before a board. So I'm like, what's the likelihood that they're going to give me somebody with a murder degree on his jacket, a license to practice the nursing? And I wouldn't have been able to know that after I finished school. So why would I go to school for all this time to take something that I would probably never even get to do? To me, that's not the best use of my time. And a lot of licenses that you need in New York, it has the criminal background, even barbershop license. Like, what the hell? Like, I can't get a haircut? So when you look at all of that, these things hinder people. And it hinder people, like I was sharing, I think with the rabbi, that they said that we miss out on $7.1 billion because people with criminal records are underemployed. But what's the total number with the people that's not employed at all with these criminal records? Right, so it's like, do I supposed to do the time for the rest of my life? Because that's what it feels like, that I got a life sentence. You saying that I can't, no matter what my skill sets, no matter what my ability, that it's a cap on what I'm supposed to be doing. So it's like, your expectation of me is so limited that I'm supposed to exist at the social level of what in this society? At the bottom? That, to me, that sounds ridiculous, man. And then when you move into the housing issue, so when I was filling out for apartments, and I don't know how long, if y'all haven't filled out apartments for a long time, it's a task in itself, it's a job, right? So while I was doing this job, every time they run your application, they hit your credit score. So if you keep getting denied, so now my score went so down. So the last time I said, yo, let me see what are y'all filing, because these companies use third-party companies to run your credit. What I found out was the 3 major credit bureaus run your credit against other credit bureaus. And these credit bureaus, one of them, they pull and see if you got any eviction or criminal records. So when I looked at the application, it had the reason, I was on parole for murder. And I'm like, I wasn't even on parole at the time. I was off parole. So now you saying that I can't even live where I want to live at, even though that I can afford to pay rent because of something that I had that I caught a case that I was 19 years old. And let's even unpack that a bit. Most ATI programs, like she mentioned, the cutoff is 24. And if y'all don't know why it's 24 and under, because through science, they say that the brain is not developed until 25 to 30 years old. So most people that have done long time have caught their time when they was either teenagers or young adults. So you're saying that I have to keep paying a penalty for something that I did or participated in when I had an undeveloped brain. Like, how fair is that? So when we look at overall Clean Slate Act, we need y'all to participate, because I don't know if y'all been affected by it, have loved ones, but it's just the human experience. And why we need it to be legislated, because let's be realistic, humans are biased and prejudiced, period. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Because we all have certain biases. Just like when I knew that I was coming in here to speak, I automatically assumed that the rabbi was a man. Right? That's me being prejudiced, right? So I didn't know, like, forgive my ignorance, but I've educated myself since then, right? You know, because we can all grow. But it's like we need to do the same thing with the Clean Slate. We need to give people an opportunity, because these opportunities help New York, because now they got more money to tax people from. They can hopefully build the trains better and stuff like that with this money that they can get from taxing us. So with that being said, man, I'm gonna close right there, because just in case y'all have any questions and we can have a, share a good conversation. Thank you.
I'm so grateful for both of their talks, and I know we're going to have some questions. I'd just like to add one thing onto what Mala said about the Clean Slate Law. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. Yep, yeah, okay. I'd just like to add one thing about the Clean Slate Law, because we do have fact sheets about it that Mala helped us to get, and we're going to we'll pass them out. And also, this is a proposal that's in the state legislature right now, and we're hoping that it might be included in the state budget, which will be done by the end of March. And if not, there's still opportunity to get it passed afterwards. But so it's really important right now that our state legislators, especially in the Assembly, even though it has a large Democratic majority, we don't have a majority yet in favor. We're close, but enough to get the bill passed out of the committee. And so we're going to have material outside that you can take home and send a postcard. We have some material, whether your legislator is already a sponsor, to thank the legislator, and if they're not a sponsor, to urge them to sponsor the bill so that we can get some traction on moving it. And just to add some specifics to what Mala said, this bill would automatically erase, seal convictions after a certain amount of time. That includes both the time you did in prison, the time you did on parole, plus for misdemeanors, there's a 3-year waiting period, and for felony crimes, there's a 7-year waiting period. So it is nothing that hands out
Not at all.
and is really not, this is really not an issue of public safety. It's really an issue of being able to re-enter and to get the kinds of jobs, housing, et cetera, that both of our speakers talked about, so that they can be contributing members of the society and fulfill their potential, as Mala said so nicely. So we can talk about it more, but I just wanted to make sure that you had some of the specifics. And as we talk about it, or if you have questions, both of them can answer it. And
And there is
also,
a rally on March 20th too in Albany for the clean slate. So the agencies are providing transportation. We bus up together. We do really fun stuff on the bus, get to know one another. It's really great. Icebreakers and all kinds of cool stuff. And then we spend the whole day lobbying in front of legislative officials. There will be team leaders there, so don't worry. We're not just throwing you to the wolves without helping out. So we'll have team leaders set up, and it's a really beautiful shared experience to go up to Albany and engage in this way with the elected officials.
and the coalition that we're a part of is encouraging people to go. But I don't know, before we open it up, whether Rabbi Margot wants to add anything to the conversation, or, anyway, just wanted to give you the opportunity. You don't have to.
Sure, I think I'll just say really briefly that I was so encouraged and excited to come here when I found out that like this post-Kiddush panel had folks from CCA and Exodus. I don't know if y'all realize how privileged we are to sit in this room. These are like really the experts. These are the folks, and their organizations are the organizations that I turn to get a better understanding of these issues. I just wanted to reiterate what a privilege it is to have this conversation together, and how grateful I am to be there with people who are really on the cutting edge of transforming our society to a juster one.
Thank you. So, yeah. Oh, go ahead.
If I, because you two can't say this, obviously with Lisa's help, with Rabbi Carter's help, but this opportunity to have Rabbi Hughes Robinson and our amazing panelists here came about because Leslie and June have been in coalition meetings, have been doing this work. And so today there are going to be really amazing ways for you to get involved with this specific campaign. But if you want to be able to help us think about what it looks like to be a religious community that is doing this work in an ongoing way, please reach out to Lisa, please reach out to me, please reach out to Rabbi Carter, because that's what we're building up as Road Faith Tzedek, is a community that can not only have these amazing programs, but also show up to those lobby days, be engaged in the work in an ongoing basis.
Great plug. Thank you. So I think Leslie or Rabbi, you want to call people? Us, yes.
Question. Does anyone have questions?
I would just ask, when you think about the kinds of things that a community like ours could do that would be most helpful to moving things forward, if you have ideas that you could share with us as we think about what we should be committing ourselves to. We are really committed to trying to push for clean slate and its passage. But Rabbi Margot had talked about, visits to Rikers Island, working on voter registration drives at Rikers Island. I know, Kendra, at one point you talked about books, the need for books, and any other ideas that you all have about how we can help move things forward.
Of course.
So definitely, this is budget hearing month, right? So in the city right now, budget season started like March 8th. There's a ton of hearings, and I will send you all the testimony guidelines and everything that has everything listed. It's really nice, and we even have draft testimonies that folks can look at. One thing we continuously hear from Mayor Adams is he does not want people who are directly impacted to be the only people speaking about the importance of these bills. He wants people that are his constituents. I swear to you, this is what he said. He wants his constituents, which are not directly impacted by incarceration, to be advocating for the passage of these bills. So this is why I have been on a tour of synagogues and all other kinds of places across the city to get more faith leaders involved, because what he hears from you, I could say the same thing to him, and because I am justice impacted, he will not hear it the same way as if he hears it from you all. I'm just being very honest, right? March, yeah, this is why we need our accomplices in this movement, which is you all, to help us. March 23rd at 9 a.m., we are doing a huge rally outside City Hall. It's around closing Rikers, and it's a closed Rikers budget hearing, saying, listen, you keep cutting everybody else's budget. The Department of Corrections has, 14 times the national average of money as any other place. And when you think about the crime in Cook County or LA or other places, it's vastly more than it is in New York City, right? So we can really show you the different ways of how you can get him to see how the money could be used in other ways. Supportive housing is a big one. If we housed the people on Rikers Island right now who needed supportive housing, who had serious mental illness and committed crime because they have serious mental illness and it's not being treated, we could save $1.2 billion a year in New York City. So it's also like, I come at it from a very moral perspective, but when you look at fiscally, I'm always blown away. Like, we spend $550,000 per detained or incarcerated person, us taxpayers, to detain or incarcerate one person on Rikers Island. My ATI programs cost $10K a year, and I can get you much better results than the $550,000 per person we're paying to put somebody on Rikers to have them be tormented and traumatized. My other thing, in addition to clean slate, there is a legislative bill that we are really pushing for. It's called treatment, not jails, right? Treatment right now, the treatment courts, the way that the legislation is written, it only includes people who have substance use disorders. We are just expanding the definition to include people with mental health disorders, people with developmental disabilities, all the other folks that should be able to receive treatment in lieu of jail. This could be a game changer because it's a state law, so it wouldn't matter what Mayor Adams technically wants because people would be given treatment over jail, right? So I think that's something that we should continually be pushing. And another thing to that, upstate, folks get treatment over jail for regardless of what crime they do. Because this was the big thing in New York City. Upstate, if you're white and in a wealthier neighborhood, you can commit a violent crime and you could still be given treatment court because you have a substance use issue. Down here, as we're talking about this bill, that's the first thing in New York City's head is, how can we exclude people with violent crimes? You don't exclude people with violent crimes upstate, and that's racism, right? This is how we're constantly talking about how racism plays a very integral role in all of our laws and how we need to advocate against it. So those are a couple of the things, and like I said, I'll make sure to send over all the stuff that I have here, and I'm happy to even do one-on-one with folks of how we can really make your testimonies, and it could just be submitted in writing. You don't even have to go sit at City Hall all day. It's very painful to sit there for 8 hours, I know. It is, but that will really, really, really make a difference because we constantly hear that they don't want to hear from us anymore. They want to hear from you all. And then I'll pass it over to you, I'm sorry.
You said everything. You the policy expert. I'm the student right now.
Can I speak? Can you hear me?
Yes.
I want to share a story with you, and I need
Maybe
your
we should give
advice.
can we give her?
This one better?
Hello?
We can't.
It's not working.
Just a second. Oh, yeah.
Use this one.
How about now? Good?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm going through a case of domestic violence. I need your advice at the end. I'm accused of domestic violence for not calling an EMS truck because someone had cramps. That's the basis of the case. I go back to pick up some warm clothing, and now I have a criminal case for violating order of protection. I had to be bailed out. As we sit here talking, I'm out on bail for a crime I didn't commit. I don't have any trust in the justice system because family court and criminal court don't work together. So the attorneys are making it clear this isn't a domestic violence case. This makes no sense. It should never appear in court. Could have been homeless, unemployed, and if I didn't get bailed out, I still would be in jail right now on Rikers Island. It's sad. They offered me a plea of five classes. We have 5 classes and confessing to a crime or violation and staying out of trouble for 6 months. My hands are tied, so I'm taking the offer because if I don't take that, at some point in trial, I'll lose. I'll get a year in jail, 6 months, whatever they decide to give me. So I'm taking the plea to get this out the way. My question to you guys is that the right thing to do?
So let me take this, right? You got to stand on your own conviction, right? And do what's best for you. Like me personally, I'm not taking no case for something that I didn't do. I'd rather go to jail because I know and understand that, I still have options to fight. But to each his own. Like, I don't know your family situation, I don't know your employment situation, but you have to do what you feel is your conviction, right? But if you feel like, yo, I'm not trying to take something that I didn't do, I would say fight. But if you feel like, yo, the fight might cost more than what it's worth, only you can make that own judgment call, man.
See, because I was 64 years of age. I go to jail, come out homeless, no work.
You're 64.
Yes, sir.
I'm going back to the gym tomorrow.
So that's part of my decision, my age.
Yeah.
What I stand to lose along the way.
Is it from the borough of New York City, like
Yes.
Brooklyn? So I'm gonna give you my information, and we with our Alternatives to Incarceration program, we work to advocate to not even get you into ATI, right? If it's something like this, right? So if you come to us and we know that the case, like you're not guilty of the case, you could still sign up with us, and just signing up, then I can have my court advocates and some of us work with the DAs, because I know most of them, right? And even if we have to go above the ADA's head to the actual DA, we can have them kind of like reinvestigate to try to at least get it completely dismissed. And then if not, like I said, he said it perfectly, it's gonna be a decision that you're gonna have to make. And what really is sad, and I don't think people realize, if you don't take a plea and you try to take something to trial, most, like 99.9% of the time, you're gonna get slammed because they're gonna give you the max, because the judge says it's disrespectful for you to take a case to trial. Like, our judicial system is not set up for people to go to trial. You see 90+% of our folks take pleas. There's a reason behind that, because like I didn't take my case to trial because it was automatic 15, and I was like, I'm not taking 15, I'll take the plea because I know that I'm gonna lose in trial, right? So I think those are also like decisions. It's really sad that we need to completely transform our judicial system as well. Average length of stay on Rikers right now is up to almost a year, especially for folks who have serious mental illness. That's a judicial system issue, not even a police or a corrections issue. Our judicial system also perpetuates people to stay inside. And that's because our judges feel that if they get some bad press because somebody does something wrong, right, now they have to deal with the constituency. So again, we need more folks like you all to stand up and say, no, your honors, we need you guys to, actually release people to ATIs and not incarcerate everybody. So we can talk offline, and I'll give you my information to see what we can do. But it's sad that these are the kind of situations that you're in, and this is what happens to our young people all the time. They take pleas so they can just get out. Look at Khalif Browder. He was in there for 3 years for a backpack that they did not even have in evidence. The backpack didn't even exist. And he sat there for 3 years and then came home and committed suicide. Like, this is the reality of our judicial system. We should all be outraged and talk to our elected officials about that outrage.
And that's a tactic that they use. Me and my coworker right here, that's Grace Woods, we go inside the juvenile centers, Crossroad in Brooklyn and Horizon in the Bronx, and some of them young people have been sitting for over 400 days, to the point to where they say, yo, I'm just gonna cop out. And the things that they tell me, I'm like, in good faith, I can't tell them to go to trial. I have to stay in my professional role, so I can't tell them to go to trial. But the things that they say, I'm like, there's no way that they should be offering you these type of time. But they know that these is young people, so who want to be sitting in jail for that long? And then they give them sentences where if they cop out, some of them, as soon as they leave from down here and go upstate, they automatically go see the parole board. So it's like a catch-22, but we see it every week, and we see how these young people are deteriorating. They spirit, physically, mentally, sometimes it's hard to watch, man. Because I can be their father, let's be realistic, or at least they cool uncle, right? So it's like, it's disheartening the way that she said, that's a judicial problem. But it all goes in line with criminal justice. If we don't advocate, who gonna advocate? This supposed to be New York. New York, we supposed to be the most liberal state. New York City supposed to be the most progressive city. But let me share this with you, right? New York State when it comes to recidivism, is at 31. 31 out of 50. Yes, we rated 31 out of 50 states. You know what states is before us, which I found funny? South Carolina, Virginia, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. The Confederate South, states that enacted black codes, Jim Crow, right, and did all type of diabolical, they are higher, they have better recidivism rates than we got.
Lower recidivism rates.
Lower recidivism rates than what we have, but we are supposed to be a liberal, blue state.
We are not.
And it's disgusting. So we have to look at, how do we overhaul everything? But that comes with participation. Like she said, it can't just come from people that's formerly incarcerated, because let's be realistic. When they look at us on the social status, we at the bottom. We at the bottom unless you famous. You become famous and then people tend to listen to you more. But if you just a regular working blue collar type of person that say, yo, we got to make a change and we need to advocate for ourselves, or I don't really want to hear you. So why I'm paying taxes for? Don't allow me to pay taxes and then you ain't got to hear me. I think that's a fair exchange, but of course they're not going to do that, right? And I can't do a fair case because I ain't pay no taxes, right? But this is where we at, man, and we really need y'all support, man. On multiple levels, right? And you see that she's an expert when it comes to policy. Yeah, I miss when she said she was doing the legal stuff in prison. And look at what she's doing now. So see.
And then couldn't even get a job as a receptionist at a law firm when I came home, right? No more than what most paralegals out here do, or even some attorneys, and could not even get a job as a receptionist. Because that's another thing. There's no transferable certificates from the inside to the outside. So we got guys that have done electricity for 20 years in their bid and then come home and they can't even think about getting an electrician job here, right? So that's also something about reimagining our systems that I was blown away by in Europe. You get certificates inside, you work the last third of your sentence that you're incarcerated, you're working in the community. Their entire ferry system is ran by incarcerated people from the supervisor down. There's no non-incarcerated person. And that's how their whole country lives. And they have way lower recidivism rates than us, way higher everything than us, right? So it's exactly what we talk about here, right? Like, we can change. The system's choosing not to.
One more question.
Okay. It's incredible what you guys are doing and telling us how to get involved. I'm curious, is there a law like this, and how could there be one if there isn't? Like, people are just sent to Rikers.
It's hard to hear her.
I'm sorry, people are sent to Rikers. I'm asking, is there a law like this, and if they're not, could there be? There are people sent to Rikers, and they're in there for a very long time, as you just talked about, and they don't even have a trial yet. Is there like an approximate time for each type of offense, or whatever you want to call it, that people normally is sent to jail, and if they serve supposedly that time already, could they have an automatic release? Like, that seems like that would release a lot of people who are in there for small petty crimes automatically. Like, I don't know, if you just steal something from someone's bag and you're a teenager, like, are you supposed to be in jail for 3 years? I mean, it seems like if they had, that normally gets 10 months, and that they could have some type of automatic release, that would just release a lot of people automatically who are, in there, didn't get a trial. So that's just like an idea for a law. If they don't have it, I don't know how, who you could.
So that was one of our 3 package bills around our New York campaign that had to do with closing Rikers. One of them was speedy trials. New York doesn't have a speedy trial law, so that's why you could see folks. It's not impossible. It's been impossible in this state because, again, we have elected officials and leaders that don't want it to happen.
Sure, of course.
Yeah, and they have speedy trial laws in many other states. Yeah, it's just like with clean slate. When we fought for this originally, it was around expungement, because we don't have expungement laws in New York. We couldn't get sponsors, and that's why it's now down to sealing. So that's why I said, like, even with this bill here, what we wanted is not something that we're gonna get, and that's why, like, if we don't even get this passed, it's like, come on, this is the safest, like, it excludes so many people because of all these restrictions now, which is not something we wanted initially. So speedy trial is definitely a bill that we're still working on. Discovery was another one. And now look at all the backlog around discovery. Look at all the backlash around bail reform. And it's all complete nonsense. That is fear. They're using fear to control, right? And I know the rabbi spoke about that. That's around, bail reform has not made our city more dangerous. But if you spoke to most of the elected officials in New York City, they would say that. And it's because they're using fear. It's the same thing with speedy trial laws. And it's, yeah, and it's not.
Yeah.
And that's what we can hope for too, is that you all can continue to educate, not just like, it's not just about legislators, but like family members, friends, sitting down at the table when we're breaking bread and saying, hey, you know, like this thing that they're saying on the news is not true, right? Here's what you could look at that is true. That is just as helpful to all of our campaigns as even, you know, speaking with legislators.
Okay, is it okay if we take one more? And also, we haven't given the people on Zoom an opportunity.
The folks on Zoom, I looked and there's no hands up.
Okay.
If anyone on Zoom has a question they want to ask, just put your hand up in the chat and we'll share it.
Kind of a two-pronged point I'd like to share is that in addition to the codification that you're speaking through rule changes, votes, policies in government, there's the social stigma.
Yes.
And this leads to whether it's individual attitudes or consensus. And let's say that what you shared about the mayor's point of view about people not affected, et cetera, I saw another previous mayor, Giuliani, video of him referring to people, well, criminals do this. I'm saying, criminals, you know, someone is innocent first, et cetera. So there's a lot of stigma out there, and there's a lot of acceptance of stigma. It's a form of prejudice. Now, in this faith, as in many others, there's an annual point in which one forgives oneself, one forgives friends, families, neighbors, et cetera. You know, at the start of the new year, and also Yom Kippur just after that. So just during this particular time of the year. And the thing is that if there's any kind of social movement or social activity, grassroots, I think is the expression, where the idea is encouraging people to say, well, we have a principle here in the United States prohibiting cruel and unusual punishment. The idea that somebody has done their time, they're out of the bonds, as you distinguished, whether it's inside the physical penitentiary or whether it's in the concept, you know, the non-physical bondage of parole or whatever other kinds of situations someone is placed in, prohibitions, et cetera. The idea is once a person's done their time, they're out, you know, sure, you could choose whether or not you're going to break bread with somebody. But the point is, the idea of saying, okay, they're done. If, you know, there's a certain point where one should not be holding a grievance against people, you know. I mean, obviously there's a lot of emotional and psychological issues attached to that if, you know, the closer it gets to one's personal lives with individual cases and specific people. But the idea of a societal transformation, an individual transformation, this perhaps would lead to a more just movement in the codification, the official state issues, state-run issues.
Yeah. And, you know, I'll just add restorative justice, you know, practices. First of all, most people who are incarcerated were also victims at one point. So I think that often gets, you know, taken out of context, right? Or like, we don't acknowledge that. Like almost every woman I was incarcerated with was a victim of usually sexual assault at some point in their life, right? And that's very common. So I always, and even with men, like I always say there was usually a trauma to root causes of incarceration, untreated mental health, substance use, normalization of violence, intergenerational poverty. Those are all root causes of incarceration. With restorative justice, what they found in a lot of other states and countries is that people who are victims of crime, when you incarcerate someone for them harming you, they don't feel any better about it, right? Like it doesn't actually restore how they feel, right? And so that's what restorative justice practices are about. And they use this in like Native American cultures, but now more widely a lot everywhere. And it's really about restoring all parties, right, that were involved, the person that committed the harm and the person that was harmed. But one thing that we always talk about is like, we work with a lot of the victim rights and survivors organizations as well. And they'll all say the same thing, like putting that person in prison for 40 years, I thought it was gonna make me feel better, but guess what, it doesn't. Because that's still not addressing the root causes, right? So I think if we did look at it from more of a restorative lens, everyone would feel much better about it, right? And yes, like because I talk about it from both sides, from being a victim also for so many years. And I think that's why I can look at it in that different lens, but it does take a lot of, those are really hard conversations, right? Like I had a peer coach who, he was a pastor and his son was murdered. And he saw, 20 years later, because his son was like 14 when he got murdered, he saw 20 years later this guy in the pews, and it was the guy that had killed his son. But now he's released from prison, and the pastor just walked up to him and opened up his arms to him. That's not where we're usually at in society. But if we have more of these conversations, I think that we could be there. And one thing that I also like to use a lot in Norway, they say that the punishment is the sentence, right? So the sentence is the punishment. If you're being punished ever since after that, whether it's while you're incarcerated or when you come home, then that really defeats the purpose, right? And also in Norway, they always say we want to teach people how to be good neighbors. So I always say that 95% of our people that are inside right now are gonna be released back to our communities. How do you want them released? Do you want them released with severe trauma and mental health because they've been in solitary confinement for 7 years? None of us want that, because that makes our kids, that's dangerous for our kids. That's what makes our communities not safe. If you provide people with the support that they need so then they can become better versions of themselves, for themselves, their families, and their communities, that actually gets community safety. But the way that we're doing it now, if you think that we're keeping our communities safe by incarcerating people in horrendous conditions for horrendously long sentences, that's doing the complete opposite, right? Because those folks are more likely to come home and recidivate because of all of this. So I would just really focus on that restorative piece and how, when you talk to anybody who's been a victim of a crime, ask them, did that 20 years of that person getting that sentence, did it make you feel better? Probably not. Most likely the answer is no. So they also need to be involved in these conversations, because hurt people, and healed people heal people.
That's a good note.
That's the note to end on, although just know that there are some folks on Zoom who are curious to hear a little bit more about bail reform and how to respond. So if you can give us that information, that would be hugely great.
And we also have Albany Days on bail reform on the 22nd, and then the following week, so.
Fantastic. And I just want to say, I'm going to hand this over to Leslie for the final word, but I do want to say, Eric Adams may want to hear from me and from us.
Yes.
I need to hear from you, and we are so grateful that y'all came to teach us and to tell us what we needed to hear.
Sorry, I just have one second, which is just thank you so much, and thank you, Rabbi. Thank you so much, and it was incredible to hear from you. And I just wanted to mention that if anyone wants to get involved in any of the criminal justice work, even if they have 20 minutes or they have several weeks, to just contact Road Faith Tzedek, either June or I, or Lisa, or the rabbi, or Talia, and I'm sorry?
What do you mean with it?
Oh, yeah, we'll get.
I'll send you,
Yeah,
send you
yeah.
everything.
We'll distribute, but if you want to be on the Road Faith Tzedek list, then we'll be distributing all of the information through that.
For the Road Faith Tzedek list through the office, through
your Shul Cloud.
Shul Cloud.
Yeah, if you go to Shul Cloud, and then at least you'll get the information about what's going on, and if you happen to have the time at a particular time, that's great. Anyway,
Leslie, do you want to tell them about the material outside?
yeah, so there's information about Clean Slate, and there are easy ways. If you go to cleanslatenewyork.org, there's a way to contact your legislators very easily with a quick email. And we have postcards. Some people have done those already on MLK Day, but we have more, and you can send those to your legislators.
Pass them around and put them all?
Sure, we can, yeah, I'll put them out on the back.
And you can do it tomorrow at the Purim party as well. There's always more and more opportunities,
Yeah,
even if you can't stay right now.
yeah. And the flyers are out on the back table already. I'm sorry? No, there's an extra, there's one on Clean Slate.
Just, it looks like this.
Sure, for people who, people may have already done this, but for people who haven't and they want a postcard. Anyway, thank you, and thank you so much to the participants.
Thank you.
Yeah,
We like
thank
to
you
say
so
thank you as well.
Really?
Let me ask to the gentleman, if you wanna, I'm on all social media platforms, LinkedIn, everything. Everything is my name, Millard Divine Millard. So you can get in contact with me any which way that you choose to. I'm available.
And I'll be sending you all my stuff, so you guys will have my cell and everything. Yes, you'll have my cell and everything, yep. Yes, and I'm doing the whole testimony guides, it's very easy, I got you. Yep, I'll send it to you and Leslie, everything on here.
Same
Will
thing
probably
if
be
you
a
have
lot
other
less.
stuff you want us to. More information, better. I know, we're trying to get them to buy.